We're late.
We're late.
They did the thing yesterday.
I didn't think we were in that.
All set, Val?
Yep.
You stay awake while
Okay, it's 5:15. We'll go ahead and call this workshop to order. Val, you will call the roll, please.
Commissioner Snow?
Here.
Commissioner Curry?
Here.
Commissioner Delanoy?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
I think you-
Commissioner Johnson, say here.
Or something, that's
Roy, say here. Say here. Here. Here.
Val calls your
Commissioner
name.
Johnson
Oh,
is
do you
here.
call him over?
Yeah?
I didn't hear it.
Mayor
I'm here,
Penny.
Val, I'm here.
I got you.
You didn't even ask me if I was here.
Mayor Penny?
Here. All right, Joe, you want to go ahead and get us started?
Yeah, well, tonight we're going to talk about the water tower that we have over there on OTJ and Urecki. So there's a couple of options. Brad Blaze from Newhook is here to go over some options for you. Some of the options, similar to the conversation that we just had, are front-loaded expenses that you would take care of in year one. So when you project out that cost over a 30-year period compared to the cost of doing ongoing maintenance or even just keeping it in place, run those costs out for 30 years and you'll see that becomes quite expensive. So I'll let Brad actually come up and give you a little bit more detail what the summary was.
Good evening, Brad Blaze and Hunt. Hopefully you can hear me. As Joe said, we're, as part of the SAFI project, the Supplemental Appropriation for Hurricanes Fiona and Ian, one of the items that we addressed was resiliency and the ability of the water plant to basically function with remote operations and also with emergency power, and to basically be able to function regardless of the ability of staff to be present, and also to be able to meet fire flows and to be able to provide public safety under all conditions. We're going to go to the next slide. So basically, today we're going to address this particular component, which is the distribution system. And right now, your water system floats on that tower. So the water tower elevation holds pressure over the entire system, and as that water tower goes down and up, it basically pressure fluctuates. And that's how you meet fire flows and other than your storage at the water plant, which is where you have your bulk storage, that goes into high service pumps. Those high service pumps float on that tank, and that tank sets the pressure in the distribution system. So we're going to talk about the project, what we're doing, different costs, alternatives, and then ultimately questions of what you guys want to do ultimately with the disposition of this tank. So basically, right now it provides storage, it maintains the pressure, and it gives you emergency supply in the event that the high service pumps are down at the station for either a brief or an extended period. It's only a 0.15 million gallon tank, which is small. If you're going to build a tank anytime, this point forward, you would probably start with a 0.5, half a million gallon tank, or a million gallon tank. Even for a small system such as ours, the cost benefit is not there for a small tank like this. It was built more than 50 years ago, and at that point in time, it was sufficient for the system. The location, it's right there on Jarecki, it's off LPGA, so it's essentially right across the street from the water plant. So the water from the high service pumps goes out to the system, it rides on the tank, and during the high demand periods, that tank elevation will drop slightly, and during lower demand periods, that water tank will fill up, but it will stay and operate within a pretty tight range. Next slide, please. So basically, the total 1 day system storage, it's only got about 10%, which ideally you'd have about 50%. So it's really too small to give you the volume that you would like at this point in time. So in that sense, it is not functioning as a true storage tank in the true sense of the word. The biggest problem that I see is because of the height of the tank, you're not able to carry any pressure over 60 psi in your system. If you pumped your high service pumps to a higher pressure and you didn't pinch the valve off, it would overflow. So essentially, static head, which is basically the engineering term. So for every 1 psi, you get 2.3 feet of water. So 100 PSI would be 230 foot tank. Your tank, I don't know the exact height of it, but it calculates out to about 58 PSI, 60 PSI.
How high would you want your municipal PSI to be?
Most, your Orman runs at 68, Daytona runs at 68, Port Orange runs at 68. Most of your neighbors who you're interconnected with all run around 68 PSI.
And if we increase the PSI, would that, can our infrastructure handle that?
Yeah, it's, your infrastructure is all designed for 100 PSI. So basically, anything that is new, goes in the ground, we test it at 150.
Okay.
So
Your
we,
water bills would
You use more water?
go up. Pressure, more water, higher bills.
you do
Better
have
shower.
more available pressure, but it allows people further out in the remoter parts of the system to have less fluctuations. So if you, again, the lowest you'll see any of your neighbors operating at is 65. Most folks are gonna run at 68. And also, another thing is when you have fire flows, okay, so they flow a hydrant, and they do a fire flow test, and they got a fire flow, a commercial hydrant at 1,000 GPMs. It's gonna be harder to do that with a lower starting pressure. So ultimately, for commercial development, some of these other things, you really should have the capability to run your system at high pressure. It's not really been a huge problem today because it hasn't been a problem, but theoretically it could be. The biggest thing is where you have interconnects. You have interconnects with Orman and Daytona. You really can't put water that way, but if you do open them, it's going to come back into your system. And if you're running on a long-term basis, you could potentially have some issues. So with this new project, we're going to be putting in emergency power, a dedicated emergency power supply at the plant, and we would recommend putting a booster pump on this site so that you could adjust the discharge pressure and boost it by 8 or 10 psi. So it would be a huge booster, but we would recommend installing a booster with this project that we're currently building. So other challenges with water quality is balancing chloramine. So essentially, you combine ammonia and chlorine to provide a chloramine disinfectant. It's not as stable as some others, and so basically trying to keep that tank turned over and operational at a lower pressure can provide some operational problems. So next slide, please. So what are the alternatives? With this new project, we do have a line item budget in the 100% loan forgiveness grant that you have that identifies costs for correcting problems with this tank. You could keep the tower in service, add a booster pump, that we keep it hydraulically separate on the gravity side, so it would fill, and then as you raise pressures, you just run the booster. The other option is keeping the landmark, decommission it, remove it, keep it, just enough water in it so that it would be able to be stable and maintain the existing maintenance contract. And just not used as a tank anymore. Use the 1 million gallon tank that you have at the water plant, and that's your primary storage and pumping that comes out of that. And then operate for emergencies with the interconnects that you have in place. And make sure that those are automated so that if you do have a major break and outage, those interconnects would operate with your neighbors. And you currently have those. The other option, disconnect it, remove the elevated tank, decommission it. We are already adding a dedicated generator at the water plant, and essentially do what most of your neighbors and other communities around the state are doing, and getting rid of elevated tanks. Not a lot of people want to work on elevated tanks because of liability insurance. So there's a very, very small number of contractors that carry the liability insurance that it takes to paint, clean, and maintain, because people fall off tanks and die. And therefore, a lot of cities don't have them anymore because there's really only a couple contractors around the state that do this work. So it's relatively expensive. Next slide, please. So basically running out the price, doing a 30-year present value. Basically looking at the cost to retrofit it with a booster and keep it in place in its current service mode. Your long-term 20-year cost is about $700,000, 30 years about $930,000. Keep it as a landmark. That basically has a very low initial cost, but you still do need to keep it up, you need to paint it, keep the rust at bay, and maintain that tank, so you're gonna have a 20-year present worth of about 400, long-term 30. If we disconnect and remove it, we do have the cost of disassembling the tank and abandoning it, but at that point, you basically have no additional cost with that site. It's mowing the grass or whatever you'll do at that site.
Are there future projections for option 2 and 3 based on current rates, or are there any inflation in those?
There is, I believe this was run as a
Joseph's saying 3%.
3% escalation.
I don't want to get off target here, but what, is that booster pump that you're talking about to put on site if we remove that tank, is that already figured in on the cost? Is that something we already, or that's something we'd have to get,
The booster
purchase?
pump would go on the site with the tank. That is what we're talking about installing with this project.
Is that already purchased, or is that in a purchase? That's something we'll have to buy.
We have not completed design or done any bid
Oh.
services on this project.
Okay.
So we have not done any design on this component.
What's the cost to run that booster pump, maintenance-wise, per year? You got any idea?
I would say that annual O&M cost in there should incorporate that. So it's pretty minimal to run the booster pump. It's a small pump. So that number that you have in there, about 20-something thousand, if it's
That's
not
all
already
right.
included in there, you're probably not looking at, O&M cost of more than $5 or $6 grand a year, so it's not gonna change that substantially.
What are we paying for now to keep that tank there? What is that, 75, you said? I think I heard a number, 70,000? Something like 77,000?
Base annual contract is $17,000 a year.
17.
And then depending on what they have to do with it, the maintenance costs are extra. If they had to, fix the ladder, there's a cost.
Yeah, I know, it's not in great shape. I've been partially.
It's old. It's an old tower. The other thing that Brad alluded to but didn't say, while I'm up here, I'm gonna take the opportunity to do it. So every morning, we have an operator come in at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they depress the water pressure in the system down to about 45 PSI, so the water will come out of that tank, so we can put fresh water in it. Because just like old bread, water goes bad, especially sitting in a tower up high. So it's an operational cost, and I'm not gonna say a water quality issue by keeping that tank there that we manage, but most systems have eliminated that because of that cost.
I know that you're making infrastructure onto the ground here. Do we need to maintain that land, or can we maintain that land and sell it?
I believe there's a well.
Oh, I mean, there's also the piping that,
Yeah, I haven't looked at sale of it, but it's a possibility down the road. We'd have to look at that, but that would be a separate item.
right. But then my other question now is the O&M moving out for those years, that's coming out of the city's budget. Is the 580 to take it down, that estimate that come out of stacking, right?
Yes.
So in essence, it wouldn't really cost us any current dollars to take it down. For keeping it's gonna cost us O&M costs forever.
Correct.
For as long as it's there.
Long sustainability, if you really want to look at a sustainable system, the economics say take the tower down, and then you get rid of the liability. As the tower gets older, it's going to get more expensive.
Right.
And God help us, at one point, it's not going to be stable anymore, and it's going to fall. So, that's not going to be any of our lifetimes, but down the road, that tower's going to come down sometime.
Are we getting any revenue off the cell towers that are up there anymore?
No.
We no longer have a cell
There's
tower.
not, that's all good. Just curious.
And the meter program is moving to the cellular, so it's no longer
Yeah.
needed for the meter program.
So Brad, I've noticed looks like Daytona's taken all theirs down. There's one right across the street from my house that's disappeared. One down towards the shores has disappeared. Were you guys involved with either of those?
We didn't do that for Daytona, but Ormond's Tower, only reason it's there is they've got cell towers, they've got their telemetry to communicate with, Leeway and some of the other tanks. So they do have some antennas up there, and because they wanted to keep it and they want to keep turning the water over, they use it to backwash their filters. That's it. The tank is too low, it doesn't provide pressure, so it is absolutely not providing anything to the system itself, but they do turn it over. Every time they backwash a filter, That water comes out of the tank, backwashes the filter and fills up in it. And that's the only thing that their tank is used for, or else it would have come down, and we talked about taking the
Right.
tank down.
So just for clarification, correct me if I'm not saying what I think I heard. The 580 to take it down is inclusive in the SAFI grant, which is the 100% reimbursable grant.
Right, and next slide, I think, is our recommendations. Our recommendation is to remove it and bid the project with the tank demo as an additive alternate. And the contingencies that are in our budget, is we basically get towards the, latter part of that project and determine that we have not expended the contingencies and that we do have available money without sacrificing anything else within the plant project, then we would authorize utilization of that portion of the money and take it down with the money that's in that job.
But I don't understand why it's not added to.
We could do it in the base bid, but, as with any project, when we get the final design done,
Are you talking about the overall scope of the project and then the
right, we'll have line items. We'll have a line item for, the instrumentation system.
Yeah.
We'll have all these line
You
items.
don't want to go bid this.
And we can put this in the base bid, and it will still be a line item. But when it is a base bid, it's harder to extract that out of the overall bid, whereas if you put it as an alternate, it's a standalone item.
I get it now.
And you can either tell the contractor, hey, we'll build it or we're not.
So are there companies out there that would bid just to take this down, that wouldn't bid on the rest of the project?
It would be a sub to the prime. The prime would get a sub price for that work.
Take it out of the project, oh, it's gotta be in the project.
In order to keep it eligible and fundable, we need to keep it in the project. That's why I'm saying we just, in the schedule of values, just list it as a line item, as an alternate, and you guys can
Yeah, that's what I'm
pick and
saying.
choose.
I'm correct.
Anyone have any questions for Brad?
I have a random question. I'm a great believer in marketing. How much would somebody have to pay us every year to put their name up there?
I have no idea.
Okay, the cost of maintenance, which you said $17,000.
I would be willing to bet the cost of maintaining that would probably exceed your revenues for what you might get on for ad space. If in fact anybody, I know a bus, it's easy to change a sign on a bus. Whereas the cost to send a, especially a contractor up there to paint that and keep it going and looking good, I haven't seen that on a war tank.
Anyone
I
remember what we,
had to ask.
anyone remember what we paid to paint it a couple years ago?
I don't remember, that was Tim,
I want to say one more thing. I've been partially up that. It's in bad shape. Yeah, I mean, it isn't seriously getting bad shape. The ladder is really, I think when I was still working here, we had an electrician who went up there and said, I won't go up there again.
Tim McDaniel.
And it was just getting that bad. So,
I don't know if we're involved in bidding that or not.
He owned, whatever the company is.
It's not inexpensive. I had to throw a number out there, what it cost to paint that today, it'd be at least $4 million.
These how much?
$4 million, it'd be about $250 to do it. Because they got a blanket, they gotta put, in order to take the paint down, they gotta put skirts up and everything else. It's a big deal.
So I got a couple of questions here about it. Say, it's come down to just about, we've got to figure out, we're probably going to have to just get rid of, remove it, otherwise we've got to spend a lot of money in the future on it, which I don't want to pass things on to future generations. So if we decided we just want to get rid of the tower and maybe put up a sign to put our logo on it or something like that, and you just have to get a contractor to come in with a crane, hook up to the tower, cut it loose, take it all down, and get rid of it, right?
Yeah, that 580 number represents the cost for, basically, we're going to have a very large project, about a $10 million project going on out there. And we would list this as a bid item, and we would get bids for that amount.
Just to have somebody take it down
That
and get rid of
GC would
it.
basically hire a company, they go up there with torches, and they would cut sections. and then a crane, they would either lower it down to the ground or remove it, which is probably what they would do and take it down into pieces.
And so, to get a contractor to bid on it, you said it would cost like over 500 grand just to remove it?
I would say that that would be your price somewhere in that neighborhood as a line item in your overall bid, would probably be in that $500,000.
And then say like you pay this contractor 580 or 508 or whatever it is, and they would scrap it out and get whatever revenue comes off the scrap from it and all that as well, right?
Yeah, that would be part of their bid, so if and it may be cheaper. Well, we really won't know the actual cost until somebody prices it out, and they'll put the recycling, whatever they can get for the price of it per pound,
Right.
they'll take that and they'll just deal with that internal to their contract.
So it's all cutting the tower down, so the plumbing that goes up to it and all that would come down, everything?
Yeah, and then we would need to go below ground, cap the pipes, properly abandon everything, so there wouldn't be a liability in the future.
And then you just clear the lot, and you could just have it as a vacant lot, right?
It would be, and we would need to look about the disposition of the underground piping and what it would take for you to get out of that.
Dennis, I don't know if you have to put the high pressure pump on that site. I mean, it's 130 HP by 100 and change. So it's a usable size lot, actually bigger than I thought. But any one of the surrounding commercial properties can purposely be put back on the tax roll.
But you couldn't just leave the piping under the ground and
No, we'd
sell
have to
it.
abandon it.
Yeah,
Well, we would have to cap it at some point, and then if we sold the property, they would have to take it back to wherever the property line is.
I would probably recommend just, the pipe has more than 3 foot of cover on it, grout filling it and abandoning it in place. The cost to excavate it and remove it, if somebody wanted to come in and dig it out and remove it, so they could do their own on-site plumbing, so be it. But by code, by law, you can grout fill it and abandon that pipe in place.
So the main thing we have to do is just get somebody to come in and bid on removing the tank and the legs and all that,
But
everything.
that's what I had kind of discussed a little earlier, is do we have the choice of just bidding that tank out on our own and getting it at a lower price, or we do it as an ad bid to the overall contract of the work and the plant? Because if we do it that way, it's covered by the grant. If you do it the way you're suggesting, we have to pay our pocket. Correct?
So that would be part of the overall bid of the whole project,
Right.
but it still has to be a separate,
They would sub it, so that
Yeah.
whoever's the contractor that's bidding on.
right, the contractor would sub it to someone else.
Right, and that person can come in.
That's what I was trying to get at, see how we would go about getting somebody to take it down and do it, because I know it would take,
Yeah, somebody you know can be a sub to that contractor.
so I know it would take like a large crane, and it would take a couple of lifts, air lifts and things to get up and torch it and hold it while you're doing it and all that, so.
I saw them take down the one across the river, Roy. They took it apart like you would cut an apple. They took the top section and they took a little slice of it, and then the bottom slice, and pretty interesting the way they took it
would
down.
need to be a licensed tank contractor. It would be a specialty contractor, licensed to do that work.
So the new system we're going to, it's obsolete, basically.
Yes, we will have variable frequency drives on automation that basically responds to the changes in pressure and maintains a consistent system pressure based on the speed of the pump.
So it's going to be obsolete.
It's obsolete. Most folks are taking it.
We're heading down a path to automation. I had the opportunity to go up and visit Palm Coast Plant number 3 last week. That's run by SCADA, a much, much larger plant. They have 3 employees on the water side. And the system runs, it's automated. We have SCADA, but not to the degree of self-automation that it has the capability of. So at some point in the future, we'll be able to reduce the demand on labor. We won't need as many employees over there. It'll be more reliable. There's so much more benefit to going to a full-blown SCADA system than doing things manually the way you do.
So I guess the question for the commission is anyone opposed to the engineer's recommendation?
Not me, I think I think we really need to get rid of it, otherwise we're gonna have costs forever in the future on it.
What
It's
the-
gonna get worse and worse and worse. Things in Florida anything made out of steel in Florida don't get better.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Roy, and Jeff has first hand knowledge of the condition, and it's just going to get worse. And I think timing is everything, because if we can include this in the grant, it's a no-brainer to go ahead and do it now rather than to pass it down 5 years from now and let someone else, because 5 years from now, it's going to cost $1 million to take it down.
We just felt it was important, and Joe and everybody, that this isn't a decision, it's a landmark. And
Right.
It's a decision that you all,
Well, that's the thing I mentioned to some people this weekend that we have this discussion tonight, and they said, "Oh my golly, you can't take that down. It's been there since I was born." Well, I'm sorry.
There was one across the street here that, of course, I don't remember there being any too much of a hullabaloo about it when it came down, but it stood there for many years. The siren went off every day at 12 o'clock and all that for 60s and 70s, and, I mean, it had to come down. I mean, of course, everything, Seca Hall went up and everything moved across the street and all that. So I don't think we're gonna hear too much. I think you're gonna hear, you'll hear some people asking when or whatever, you tell them. It's obsolete. It's gone, it's rusted. It went to the,
I want to make a point. But the water system is going to greatly improve. They're going to
Yeah.
have better pressure,
Yeah.
a more reliable plant. That's what, you're really
Right.
moving to the modern world.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And that would be my response when a resident calls up and say, "Why'd you take the water?" We moved to a modern system. You got better pressure and a system that's going to be up and stable, whether there's a hurricane, lightning storm or whatever.
More resilient.
More resilient.
Anyone else have any more questions for Mr. Blaze?
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Got anything else for us, Joe? All right, well, we got 15 minutes. Go talk amongst yourselves. Check your emails. We'll see you back at 6 o'clock.